Hello, my name is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 282 of Gaming with Grief. And today I'm going to be joined very shortly by my friend Tim Navasky. I would say his last name wrong, even though he's a really close friend. I always blow his last name. Anyway, way back in the day, Tim and I talked about Final Fantasy. It was episode 271. It came out in July of 2024. I'll put the link right where my finger is, right here. I'll put the link for where it goes. Anyway, I'll link to that episode. He talked about his history with Final Fantasy. I said I had never really completed a Final Fantasy game. I played a little bit of Final Fantasy 14 online, and I played a little bit of the Final Fantasy 7 Intergrade remake, Part 1 remake they've done on PS5. I have not played Rebirth, the second part, but him and I are going to go full spoilers. I have completed Final Fantasy 16 with Clive Rossfield. Shout out to Ben Starr. I've started the game. It's my first Final Fantasy game, starting from the start screen, new game, all the way to rolling credits, and now I'm playing New Game Plus in Final Fantasy mode, which is like a difficult mode of the game. And I'm 2 trophies away from platinuming it, so we're going to go into full spoilers about Final Fantasy 16. Tim has beaten it as well. We're going to talk about what we think of the game. Again, total spoilers. He was screen grabbing things, as he was going along towards the end, and I was like, good luck. He showed me the credit screen when he got done. So we're going to talk about that today on the podcast. If you like what you see and hear and want to recommend it to a friend and family, please like and subscribe on YouTube. I'm also on Spotify, and I'm also on Apple iTunes. I think I'm on Google, but they have a weird thing with like how their podcasts are managed and things don't get updated. So if you want, to get like the newest of the new stuff, like, subscribe, comment, and then subscribe on either Apple iTunes or Spotify. Those places are great. So I hope you enjoy the episode. And again, I've said this many times, but I'll say it again. Full spoilers for Final Fantasy 16. So without further ado, here's my friend Tim. Tim, I don't know why I just yelled there. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I had this weird feeling of deja vu when we were going to record this. So I actually went back and looked. You and I did record an episode. It was episode 271, way back in July of 2024. And we talked about Final Fantasy.
Oh,
I'm glad I did that because I had a question written down here, your history of Final Fantasy, but that episode 271 kind of answers those questions about your ranking and what was your favorite. I already did an intro. We're going to do full spoilers for Final Fantasy 16, so that's like the 5th time people have been warned that we're going to do spoilers. At least the intro, I did it like at least 3 times. Did Final Fantasy 16, it's not your favorite, but is it in the top 3 or 5 that you...
It's in the top 5 for sure. It's close to the top 3. So my top 3 are 7, 9, and 10.
7, 9. Is 7 and 9 tied? Because I got that from the original episode. I listened to like 10 minutes of it. You said 9 and 7 are they still
pretty
tied?
Close. Yeah, they're pretty close. And then, so I don't know if 16, I don't know if 16 takes the number 3 spot from 10, but it's real close. It's real close.
I said in the intro, but I'll say it again. This was the first Final Fantasy that I started, like new game, all the way through rolled credits. Like I've dabbled in Final Fantasy. We talked about Final Fantasy 14, which by the way, I downloaded the PS5 version of it a couple weeks ago, like updated and everything. And it totally starts your clock over because it gave me a notice for Final Fantasy 14. It said, you have an old version of this. If you upgrade to it, you have to upgrade to the PS5 version. So I upgraded it and it resets your clock. It's like, how much have you played of this? The old one said 75 hours on PS4. The new one says 0. So they just, So, I mean, your character's on a server. I could check that time. But so this is the first single player Final Fantasy that I have like started and rolled credits. And I'm in, man. You were giving me a list of like, try these out. And I was like, well, gas is $5.50 a gallon. Maybe I'll stick with the ones I own. And so I was looking through the ones I own. I also got the SNES Mini that came out a couple years ago. That's got like 21 games. It has like Final Fantasy 6, but it's actually Final Fantasy 3. I literally tried to read the Wikipedia page on that, and it made no sense. Like in Japan, they were coming out before they came to the States, and they gave them a new title when they came to the States because there was like Game Boy versions of it that were like Final Fantasy, whatever. I was just like lost. But I will say, like you mentioned, I thought what pulled me through this is like, as my wife made fun of me, she would come in and watch me play Final Fantasy 16 and say, it's kind of like a soap opera. Like there's a lot of but I think the voice acting was really good. Really good. The performances, Ben Starr. I actually have a list of the actors that I wrote down. I'm trying to see if I can find it here because I was, so you got Ben Starr played Clive Rossfield. Susan Fielding played Jill Warwick, so Jill. And then David Menken played Barnabas, who I thought Barnabas was a really good villain in the game. He shows up kind of late. Was he like an early, like there was a cutscene with him early on, and I didn't understand what was going on, and then later you see him and he's like a big villain. And then Stuart Clark plays Dion, who I really liked, who is... and then Ralph Ineson, who's very famous. I don't know if you know Ralph Ineson. He did Sid. He's been in tons of like Edgar Wright, or not Edgar Wright. They did like The Witch. He did the new Nosferatu movie. He does like these old style, and he has Ralph Ineson is in them, and he has a very deep voice. I mean, you hear when you. Yeah. He was also in The Green Knight. Once you hear Ralph Ineson's voice, you're like, oh yeah, that's Ralph Ineson. Like, and he even said that I think he was. I can't think of his name. Anyway, Edgar, the director says, they go, oh man, you have such a distinct, he was in an interview, they said, you have such a distinct, deep voice. And he says, well, it's funny because every time Edgar directs me, he wants me to get my voice higher. Like, he doesn't like that it's so deep. And I was like, but isn't that really why you hired him? Because once he does narration or a speech, you're like, man, that's a voice. You know, that's crazy. What do you...
Oh, yeah. Ralph, now that I had to look up a picture of him.
Once you see him, you're like, yeah, but you hear his voice, so you're like, oh, that's Ralph. Like, there's no way
that's part of the appeal, though, right? His appeal is his voice.
No, it's amazing, but I think it's funny that people are like, could you make your voice different? It's like, that's why you're hiring him. That's got to be 80%. Like, he's a great actor, but like, that's like 60% of the reason why you're hiring him. It's like, I heard that joke of like, it's not having a good voice, it's knowing what to do with it. Like, there's a lot of people out there that are voice actors, and Ralph Ineson. Like, it's one of the things when you hire Ralph Ineson, you're like, this is what we're getting. We want you to do the thing that you do. I would have hired somebody else. Anyway, I think for me, there is a lot of like soap opera stuff in this game, but there was a really touchy subject about like slavery, and some of the stuff I still kind of, I guess the idea that these bearers can control magic and they're kind of frowned upon and like literally enslaved. But it is weird. It's like, yeah, but I can do what you can't do, so we could just burn it down. But like the idea that they make them do these crappy jobs or kind of keep them away from each other, or they literally mark them. They put a tattoo on them, which I think all that stuff was really good. I like it, and let me ask you, since you know more about Final Fantasy than I do, the icons, Bahamut, Ifrit, the Phoenix, all those. That's kind of like, I played Final Fantasy 14. You have to fight them, but like, it does seem like this is this more personal form of it, where the protagonist or the characters like have them inside them. Cause it seems like I said, all I have is a touchstone of Final Fantasy 14 where you fight them, but these are like people, which I think is very interesting, that it's like, I can do it, and
so for me, the icons or whatever, they've changed names. It's always the same icons. So they're, in 7, they're summons, and they're, the materia system in 7.
Yeah.
So if you attach a certain materia to a person, they get that summon for whether it's Ifrit or Shiva. Or,
they summon it like a spell, like a mage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in 9, I want to say in 9, there's only, I think Garnet. This is going to be more spoilers. So,
okay.
Yeah. So
it means
that's
nothing
more,
to me.
That's more personality. Yeah. So that's more personality based. And then in 10, it is in 10, the game revolves around, they call them Eidolons in 10, but the game revolves around them essentially for the most part. Kind of the same thing. That's more personal, and it gets more personal kind of throughout. So, this one is like the first time where it's like a 1-to-1, right? Like this person is in control of this
Right.
icon. Yeah.
A lot of the reviews, because I watched reviews years ago when I was like thinking of getting this game, and I just had a different take on it that like, well, anyway, when I was reading reviews, everybody described it as like every nation basically has a nuclear weapon. Like
Yeah.
every nation, it's like, oh, I don't want to fight because what if they bring out their nuke? Well, then we have a nuke, and then it's going to be rough because it's going to literally level the thing. My thing is like, sticking with the idea of my podcast, The Gaming with Grief, the idea that a lot of people in this game like suffer from guilt. There's a lot of guilt in this game of Clive obviously thinks he killed his brother. Jill, her person that enslaved her, is like a cult leader and wanted her. She's a little cagey about it, but she does kill him. There's a scene where she kills him and says, "I don't want to do this anymore." And your brother Joshua in the game has guilt, I think, for like him not understanding or not getting the whatever. It seems like he wasn't able to control like the Phoenix maybe a little bit. I don't know. And then Sid has guilt because he obviously was kind of, there's the Empire and whatever, and he was kind of on the wrong side of things and knew Benedicta and all that, and like did bad things. It seems like the guilt was like a common theme. Like everybody, it felt like a D&D party where everybody had a tragic backstory. And then
Dion, right? Dion's back.
Oh yeah. Well, Dion was actually like, I felt like the worst for Dion because he was like a noble dragoon with his people, and he'd be like, I'm going into battle. And then there's that cutscene where he's like, I'll take to the front lines, and he jumps over the cliff and he's Bahamut. And you're like, he wanted to do well by his family. It gets really meta at the end with, did you totally absorb the end? Cause I had to look up like a thing. I missed something with the, Ultima and all that, and the idea of the Logos and the thing Clive does at the end when he like fires, literally shoots fire into the air, into space. And then I had to read online that basically he's like killing magic. So everybody's like on
reading the world of magic.
Yeah. And then he turns to stone or whatever, which was crazy. I did get a little mad because I did the trophy where you craft the ancient Rotterdam sword or whatever it's called. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It's like a whatever. And he throws it like a spear at Ultima in the end. And I was like, no, I made that. Like, where'd it go? And so there was DLC, and I was reading in the DLC, like, do you just go get it? Does somebody find it in a rock or something? Like they pull it out like Sword in the Stone. I was like, but I made that, And then immediately I played New Game Plus, and you find the first weapon you get like a piece of one of the icons, and it's like, do you want to craft a better sword? And it's like, but this was a legendary sword. It's like every expansion where it's like you log in and you have the coolest stuff, and then day one they're like, that stuff sucks, like you got to upgrade all this. I mean I really it did. I do like the idea of Sid kind of finding out like, hey, I think the crystals are bad, which is something like, again, more about Final Fantasy than I do. I mean, I just use the crystals in 14 to travel around. They're just in towns that you teleport to. I mean, crystals, you could argue that crystals, chocobo, and maybe, and the names, like, Sid, definitely. Like,
Sid, yeah.
There's things that always happen in Final Fantasy, and those are the three things. So is this like a different interpretation of like what crystals do? Or does this happen... Like, is there other Final Fantasies that kind of like dip into, hey, crystals are bad? Because I thought that was an interesting take of like, hey, what if these are not that great for us?
Yeah, I guess I don't like that. That's a really good question. So, I mean, trying to think of when crystals pop up for the most part.
Yeah.
Because,
like I said, in 14, it's like, hey, just use them to teleport. They're just teleport.
Yeah, and then in like 7, it's materia. It's not crystals, it's materia. And Mako, right? So those are kind of similar.
Well, that everybody says 7 famously, and I mean, I saw it just in the intro that I played, the idea of like it's climate change and environmentalism. Like, hey, we're sucking all this stuff out of the earth to make make a big coal plant, basically. Like that was the whole point of the game. Which, So my other question is specifically Final Fantasy 7. You played 7. You said more than probably any other Final Fantasy. And you played the remake. Is there, like, people, I remember at the time saying, they've made such big changes to, like, the end of each one of these sections. Like, you need, like, a Final Fantasy whisperer like you to be like, here's how it's different than it was, in 97 or whatever. And did you like those changes, or were you like, ugh, I don't know if I like all this?
No, I liked him. I liked him. I mean, it was definitely surprising. I'm not like a super purist, so
Mm.
I kind of expected something to be different.
Yeah. Plus, it's been what, 30 years or 20 something,
Right, right,
and you're
right. So
like,
but I'm also not the guy that like I read a book and I go see a movie and I get mad that the book's not or the movie's not exactly like the book. Like I'm not one of those people.
yeah,
So,
I do think
so
too. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
well, and then the changes that they made, like the differences they made, they did them for specific reasons and they explain them, and I think it's great.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like in the
Right.
world, you're like, oh,
And yeah, and for the most part, the game is like I would say 90%. I mean, it's real close. They just added some stuff on top of what you got, but
I did,
storyline for me is still
yeah.
good.
I mean, bringing it back to Final Fantasy 16, I did read the people that really didn't like the game were like, this isn't Final Fantasy, and I was like, well, kind of, it is. And two, like, it doesn't. It reminds me. There's a famous quote that an author, I think it's the guy who wrote Perry Mason. I'm trying to think of his name. Anyway, he was attributed this quote years ago where they were going to make movies on his books, and it was very early on. He got interviewed, and they said, "Well, isn't going to ruin your books like if the movies are terrible?" And he just pointed to the shelf behind him. He said, "No, my books are right there. You can read my books if you want to read my books, or you can go see the movie. If you don't like the movie, you could still read the books, and if you don't like my book, you can go watch them. Like I don't care either way." And I think that
Right.
some of it is like, all the Final Fantasies that people like U 9, 7, it doesn't like, and even the remake, it doesn't. They didn't remove those. Like you could still go play those and be like, oh, these are really great, So like me jumping in, wanting a more action-packed game, and playing the remake for 7. I don't hate turn-based, but I like it to be a little bit more faster. And I think 7, the remake, you're like, oh, there's a mix and match here of like I can do these basic attacks and then with
Yeah.
the AP unlock something. And before we recorded, we're talking about Claire Obscura, Expedition 33, and that's a good example of, hey, it is turn based, but like there's stuff you could do. You can parry, dodge, jump. You can interrupt people, all that kind of stuff. That stuff's really fun. And I think that's the great thing about there's so many Final Fantasies that you can just say, well, I want like a pure turn-based, and you could say, okay, go to 9, go to whatever, And I just think that I really like this one, and I like that it was a complete story. It finished. I will say the one criticism I have is some of the side quests are a little bit like, go deliver porridge to somebody, and you're like, okay, well, this really feels like this was the same team that does Final Fantasy 14. It feels like a level 10 or like a level 2 side mission when you walk into the Golden Saucer and they say, hey, you really got to know your way around town, but they're trying to teach you about vendors and crafting. So you go visit everybody just to talk to them and get XP. And you're like, okay, there was some missions in Final Fantasy 16 where I was like, I don't know if I like this. And I saw some comments online, people saying, I'd love to play in this, but I do not want to do all these side missions again. And it looks like right now I'm not going to have to, because I literally muted it and listened to a podcast while people were just droning on. And there'd be like, I've noticed now, New Game Plus and just speed running the game, you can skip all the cutscenes. And I'm like, dude, this game takes half as long. Like just hitting this, like, I know what you're going to say. I know, I just did this. I don't need to listen to this. But I mean, still really good. There is a couple scenes I'll watch, Sid lighting up a cigarette when he bites it and then gives you his power and all that. Like, that's pretty good. And I think it was an interesting thing. That's another question. With the other Final Fantasies, do the summons like take it out of people? Because, that is a big deal on this, where these bearers or these people that are summoning icons or magic in general, like they get like stone skin almost and turn to dust because it like eats away at them. Is that new for this game, or does that happen in other Final Fantasies where it affects you, like if you summon these whatever?
No, I mean the ones that I play are super familiar with. They don't. They don't.
Nice.
No. So yeah. So I mean, they go from like MP usage, right? So like a summon is just your MP usage, and then they go to like the icon or the Eidolon becoming the playable character with its own HP, and you play them as long as their HP is good, and then when they die, it reverts back to the bearer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's things like that, but this is the first one where it's like, oh no, people like this is slowly killing you.
Yeah, there was that early mission that I just played where you go to this abbey and like a lady's giving the priest money to keep, giving them meds. Basically, it's like a retirement home for these bears, and they're just slowly dying, And then I think the only thing they didn't really explain also was the acoustic thing where people turn blue, and then I was like, oh, so they're like burning out on like crystal energy, but like, can anybody do that or whatever? And then there's this whole thing at the end where Clyde's like, well, listen, I am a bear, and I have an icon in me. I can go to these dangerous places along with Jill and whoever, and we won't be affected. If you're normal, stay away. And it's literally like everywhere. Like at the end game, you're riding through.
It's the blight, right? So the blight is what turns them into the
right. Yeah.
But then that's Ultima essentially trying to rewrite the human race
right.
to just be subservient. So
right, and that's the whole thing. They get in this. They keep kind of bringing it up, like my will, and you're like, I got it. And then they bring it up again, and you're like, Like it's very. No, I don't. For me, even playing it and the side quest being a little bit of a drag. Like again, I told you I'm in. I'm like, give me a list. I have Final Fantasy VII Part 1. I'll probably play 14. For a month. I have 3, and I think they might have added, like, did they add those pixel remasters to the PlayStation catalog? Because I think it's like 1 through 6. I'll have to see. And then you mentioned Tactics. They redid Tactics.
Yeah, I never played that one, so I'm not like super familiar with that one.
I guess everybody said the remake is like superb because it adds voice acting every scene. Mm-hmm. And they added like some new content that was like on the cutting room floor or something that back in the day was difficult for them to do. And now they're like, well, we can do that. And they said there's a lot of like class stuff in it, like poor people and rich people. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, I mean, I'm in. Like, we'll talk about this probably for a while. And now I don't have to be like, hey, which one should I play? Like, you could just give me a list now and tell me. So
I think if we're talking about, that's kind of
I
where
have a pen, by the way.
I'm sure about 10 and 16 is if I played them both now, I think 16 wins for me. Okay. But I played 10 so long ago, like when I was a kid. Like, I remember you're right. So PlayStation 1 is 7 was where I played 7, 8, 9, and then PlayStation 2 is where I paid 10. And I remember I went out and got 10 like with my own money. I bought that for myself.
Yeah, wasn't 10 the only one that had a sequel? It was like 10 and 10-2, which is kind of crazy if you think about it.
Yeah.
Cuz this one,
and then 13 did that too.
So 13, they did 3 parts in 13, didn't they? Yeah. And everybody hates 13 for some reason. I don't know. I
didn't hate 13.
No, I think it's just one. It's like this. Like, okay, well, you didn't like one of them. There's 12 other ones, and then there's 11, which is online as well, right? It's 11, and then 14 are online, and people still play 11. Apparently, they're not updating it, but they're maintaining it, and people are like, yeah, I play this, and I'm like, wow, because that came out in like PS2, I think, era.
Yeah,
where that's what they had, an Ethernet jack in the back of the PS2, and people were like, oh my god, like I can play online. That's crazy. Yeah,
so but the other one that's like similar, like if you don't want turn-based, the 2 remakes for 7. Yeah. Aren't turn-based. 15 is also not turn-based.
Oh yeah, I downloaded that. It came when you buy your PlayStation. They had like a classics collection or a whatever, PlayStation Essentials collection, and that was one of them. And I think I was like, well, because at the time I was still Final Fantasy scaredy cat, and I was like, well, I can claim it for free. I think that's what it was, where they had like they randomly announced like, hey, these are classics, download them, and then like a year in, they're like, hey, we're taking these off. You're no longer going to be able to download them unless you do it now. And so I was like, all right, I'll claim them right now. And I claimed 15. And I think it's,
nice. Okay.
I think it's the Royal Edition is the one.
Yeah. I enjoyed 15. And 15 has a movie. So like there's a movie.
Oh yeah. Like the Royal something or Royal Guard or something. Yeah.
Kingsglaive.
Yeah. Also what's crazy about, Final Fantasy 15 is, you have the car, and that's very iconic. I've seen the trailers when the boys are on a road trip, basically. And, Final Fantasy always does cross-pollination between whatever. Well, in 14, they were like, hey, we're doing a crossover with 15. Everybody's like, what are you doing? You get the car as a mount. So I've literally been paying 14, like in a town, and someone will just drive the car into a quest giver to turn in a quest, and they'll drive it in a building. You're like, what the heck? Like this big sedan will just drive through.
Yeah.
The crazy, and part of me when I was playing 14, that wasn't the craziest thing. The craziest thing is everybody has mounts and they're these crazy fantasy creatures. I have a chocobo, but like other people have weird glowing unicorns and like stuff from Final Fantasy I wouldn't get. The weirdest mount in that game, in my opinion, is just a horse. There is a royal quest where people just get horses, and everything that's so crazy about Final Fantasy in general, when you see a horse ride up, you're like, what is that, majestic Steve? Like, that's so weird compared to these glowing dragons that people are flying and stuff, and somebody just rides up on a horse, and you're like, what did you have to do for that? Trying to think what else with 16 that again, the performances were really good. I did like Ultima's idea where he obviously was very godlike, where he's like, well, I made a mistake, but I'm just gonna redo it, and you guys are just kind of along for the ride. Like, it doesn't matter. You're nothing. I'm just gonna, like you said, I want to rewrite this. You're not gonna. I'm just gonna start this all over again. But then Clive brought it up at the end, like, well, you kind of did it to yourself. You made the blight and did all this, and you're causing your own problems. Basically, is what he's like at the end. Basically, I was a little confused at the end when Joshua, because I thought it was cool in the beginning when Joshua showed up and like caged Ultima, and then he was getting sick, and I actually liked all that because I was like, oh man, is he gonna die before we get to the end? I didn't know. But what I thought was weird was at the end when the thing like rips out of his chest, he's like, Ultima's like, oh, I had a brother or something, and you're like, wait, what? Like, there's two of you? I thought there was only you said there was other deities, right? But like it was like his twin, or did you get that? Because
I thought it was a piece of him.
That's what I thought too. I was like, oh, he took his soul or something. But then he said the line like, welcome back, brother, or something like that. And I was like, is it what? Like, it was just one of the things I was like, what? Like, I didn't get that. It was sad, but he did do the deathbed monologue a lot where I was like, dude, his chest is ripped open. And he's like, remember that time when we were getting roses? And you're like, whoa, dude. Save me.
I thought that Ultima was going to essentially take him over, and then you were going to have to fight Joshua. Like, I thought Clive was going to have to kill Joshua again.
Well, what that's interesting. I didn't think that. What I liked about that idea though was that like as soon as Joshua shows up, of course he's in a hood, and it's like, who could it be? And as soon as he took his hood off, I was like, I knew it. I knew he didn't die. But my whole thing was like, oh, it's the Phoenix. He's been reborn. Or whatever, But I also like the fact that Joshua seemed to be a little bit more learned than Clive. Clive was like, I don't understand why this is happening, why or whatever. And Joshua did the ritual to like, take part of Ultima away. Like I was like, oh, he's the book one. Like, I'm going to study all this. He probably knew about all the icons. I think he mentions like, we got to do this. Like, he knew their abilities. And I was like, oh, that's a cool, like, contrast to Clive, who literally is just a sword arm, and he mentions that many times in the cutscenes and many of the side quests. Well, I'm pretty stupid. You're like, we get it. Or somebody be like, I need your sword. And he's like, oh, of course, that's what I'm good at. And you're like, okay, you're not that dumb, but we get it, So, did you see they did an ad for like a summer sale with Ben Starr and Matt Mercer kind of dueling? They're both pitchmen. I'll send you the clip. It's only a few minutes long, but they were selling. Ben Starr did it last year. So then they started it up with him on the phone in the same place that he did the ad last year. It looks like a little lounge. It's like a little office. And he's like, what do you mean I've been replaced? By who? And then he was like, Mercer. And then Matt Mercer comes in and takes over. And Matt Mercer played Vincent Valentine in the... Yeah, and he said that's his favorite character in Final Fantasy. He's a big Final Fantasy fan.
So Vincent is also my favorite character.
Well, there you go. You and Matt Mercer have something in common. He also, it's good. I like that kind of stuff. I think, I'm trying to think of the other thing. I think, like for me, everything about the game, like I don't really give things scores. I just recommend them. I mean, I would recommend it. Obviously, I got it when it was on sale. I recommend it. I mean, you obviously recommend it. You said you're not going to platinum it. Do you think it's going to, do you think it's going to stay with you a bit, or are you going to kind of move on? Are you going to go back and play like 7 or 9
so I'm probably, so right now I moved on to Clair Obscura. And then I'm going to go back to an old school game. So the old school game I'm probably going to play next is probably Legends of Dragoon. Another
was that on 360? That was on
it was a PlayStation game.
Oh, because there was a couple back in the day. Xbox tried to make a big push for RPGs, and they had like a couple of obscure like Blue something. Anyway, they had some obscure RPGs that people were like, for Xbox, these are actually really good RPGs, and no one talks about them because Xbox is not known for JRPGs. But they made a push, and they got like two big RPGs, and everybody's like, these are actually good. I'll look them up and see if I can find. I'll send them to you. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Like I said, I'm in now. You can give me a list. I'll play the next one, and I'm like, dude, this is great. Like, I will. I do think it's going to be weird when I'm like, if I summon an icon basically, and I'm like, oh, I can't be it. That's kind of a bummer, Like I was used to, and I know the limit break system in other Final Fantasies. Does it work similar where it's like a overdrive gauge where you do extra damage or stuff?
So it's like so in seven it'll be a special move. So if you're playing the remake,
yeah,
your limit break gauge will overdrive and fill up, and then from there you get to do like a special move or a special series of moves. Tifa in 7 has like a crazy gambit of moves she can do.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because she does a lot. She's a bunch of ninja stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that's a one shot done. Like you do the move and it's over, and then you got to refill your limit break.
Oh, right. But it does a massive amount of damage. Can you miss with your limit break? Because that would suck in 7 if you. I know it's like mostly turn based and stuff, but it would suck if you fire off like a move and you're like, oh, it did no damage or whatever.
So in the remake, yes, you can absolutely miss with a limit.
Sucks. I mean, I get why.
So if like if you're if you hit the button and then your opponent like jumps or moves out of the way, depending on what it is. So like Barrett's got a gun, so a lot of his are shooting.
Yeah.
So if you're not shooting in the right direction, like things like that. But like Vincent, you'll see. Well, you won't see him.
I might. I wish listed it. It might hit the PlayStation service. I don't know. Maybe when they announce, because I think what it was I got the Intergrade when they announced the second part was coming out, and they put it on the service. So maybe when they announce the third part, they'll put Rebirth on PlayStation Plus, and then that's how. Like I'm waiting. I have it wishlisted of like, well, I'll pay X amount of dollars, but if it's part of the service, like
So the remake Intergrade is on PlayStation Plus right now.
Yeah. Well, they did the thing too where they added. I bought the Space Marine. Warhammer 40K, the Space Marine 2, and like a week later, they're like, hey, we're adding it to the service. And I was like, of course. Like after I spend the $25.
It's funny you bring that up because I was like not interested in playing. I only had a little bit of time. I was like, oh, what is this Warhammer game? So I like put up PlayStation Plus and like played it for a couple minutes, and I was like, oh, this could be fun. I don't know if it's multiplayer or whatever, but
I think it is. I think you can have a squad of like 4. They've added so much to that game, it's almost live service. They keep having updates like, hey, we added a new map or whatever. Well, Tim, thanks for making me a Final Fantasy sicko now. I'm on my way. This was the gateway drug for me being this was my marijuana. This is my the beers that the parents don't know about in the liquor cabinet that I have to And now
I'll be interested here if you play, like if you go back and play some of the other ones, like the classic ones, like what you think, because those, I mean, I would say formidable years, right? I was a teenager when I started playing those games, so I don't know, like I think for a lot of people those older ones are just nostalgic versus like whether people actually like them or not. So I'll be interested in your take.
Yeah, I definitely want to play the remake of 7 now, the part 1, because I played like the demo or just the intro when Cloud breaks into whatever, and I was like, man, this is, I think I text you or something. I think that's why I had you on the pod that other episode, because I was like, this is actually pretty good. I like that it is more action-packed, I think that's what it is. I don't hate turn-based. It just does seem like it is slow. And what I've read about the Final Fantasies getting re-released is it seems like a lot of them have a speed-up button where you can like 1 times or 2 times battle timing, because people are like, hey man, back in the days this is all we had, but like if you want to speed it up, we'd be more than happy for you to get to it, because
yeah. And the old 7, like when you summoned an icon, like it had a whole cutscene, and that whole cutscene played every time you summoned, and some of them were super long. So if you had like a summon that you like to use a lot, so the big bad summon that's super hard to get in that one is a really good one, but in order for you to do that one, it's like 45 seconds long.
Yeah, and you can't skip it
over and over again. You can't skip it.
Yeah.
And then I think in 9, they would have like the big cutscene for the summon, and then they would have a shorter version. And they played the shorter version 90% of the time, and like every 10th time you would get the long one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there you could start like, and then in 10 it's a playable character, so you're actually like playing as
that's cool.
Yeah, and then so it's gotten a lot better, and then there's not a lot of things where you can like skip through things now because you could not skip before. Like you had to watch things happen.
Yeah.
Now you can skip. So that I think will be a lot better for people. I think the turn based that was the worst for me because it took forever for anything was 13. Like I liked the game. I didn't dislike the game, but I felt like any like big bad fight was like minimum an hour because of like just because the mechanics of the game forced you to do certain things in battle. And it was
and then
like
if you
stagger, right? So like in 16 there's a stagger gauge, you stagger the opponent. Same thing in 13 there's a stagger gauge, but you have to do certain things in order for stagger to work.
Oh, right.
And that would draw the battles out. And right, then you get someone 95% of the way there, and then you die, and you have to do it all over again.
Yeah, because that was the thing back in the day. I mean, at least now they've kind of restart you at a phase of a battle, like phase 2 of 3. Back in the day, it was like, hey, you're starting at the beginning, and like it's like a Dark Souls game, where you're like, oh, I gotta start all over. Oh man, I will say, replaying the game, it is nice to skip the cutscenes, but like the Ifrit fight, when you first figure out your Ifrit and do the dark thing, and then you semi-prime and you're fighting the dark mirror version of yourself or whatever, there's so many phases where I didn't die, but I died once because he did the Hellfire where he turns everything to fire, and I was trying to face tank that. I was like, screw this, I'm done, and he just melted me. I died once, but there's so many phases I just kept skipping, and then it's like, oh yeah, then I got to fight the dark, and then you do that, and it's like, oh, now I'm Ifrit again, and oh, I got to do this, and it's like there's like 5 phases where I was just like, come on, man, I've already beat you once. I know this is sad, but I want to move on, and get to the next thing. So
yeah, well, if you have 7 and 15 already, I start with those.
Yeah, I'll do part 1, and then that'll suck because I'm like, oh, I gotta buy part 2 now, and then when does part? What's gonna happen is they're gonna come out with.
You could do 15 first,
and then wait to see. Well, also the thing too, I think is gonna be crappy is they're gonna announce 3 because they said they're rounding the end of it or whatever because everything's getting faster because they already have like a process and the engine's done and all that. But they're gonna do like a gold edition where it's like all 3 parts. And that's like, oh man, I know that's going to happen. So maybe that's how I'll get 2 and 3. I don't know. Maybe it'll be a bundle thing or something. So, well, thanks, Tim. Thanks for taking time out of your Sunday to talk to me about Final Fantasy stuff. Yeah, man. And thanks. Well, maybe not so thanks for making me a big sicko. Because now I'm like, dude, this cool thing happened. My wife's like, uh-huh. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just go talk to Tim. This doesn't seem to be playing right before we're going to go to bed. Because she's like, well, it seems like kind of soap opera. I'm like, yeah, but there is some good stuff in there, of like good, like, like I said, they talk about slavery and all this stuff. But yeah, so cool, man. Well, thanks for taking your Sunday, Tim. And yeah, hopefully it'll be before 2 years almost that I talk to you again. We got to do it more than every 2 years on the pod. So thanks, Tim.